Hey guys, and welcome to that video. So if you currently weigh yourself more than once a week and you are not getting results with your weight loss diet, then you need to watch this video. And on that note, if you are a woman who struggles with emotional eating, struggles with losing weight, I have a free Facebook group, which I'm going to be talking about later on, so stick around for that. But for now, let's get into the video. So when I ask people how often they weigh themselves, sometimes it's several times a week, sometimes it's every day, sometimes it's even several times a day. And even those who weigh themselves once a week, sometimes they tell me as well that they're sneaking a little peek midweek to see how their weight loss is going. And it can become rather obsessive as well, with some people telling me that they're weighing themselves after exercise or after eating and things like that. But first of all, let's just have a little chat about what weight actually is. So when you step on the scale, you are measuring your weight. That is important because your weight is you, all of you. And yes, some of it is fat, some of it is also muscle. Some of it is the carbohydrate stores which are in your muscles and your liver. Some of it is water. Some of it is your organs, your blood, your hair, your food and your digestive system. And if you're weighing yourself with clothes on, your clothes. So there's a lot of different things there. And all these things can change hour to hour, day to day, week to week, month to month. And the most common of these is water weight. So water weight can fluctuate throughout the day, depending on lots of different things. Stress, saltier foods, your menstrual cycle, lack of sleep, exercise, things like that. And so the point here is when you are weighing yourself, you're not just weighing fat change, fat loss or fat gain. You're weighing other things as well. So the scale is not necessarily showing your fat loss progress. For example, if I drink 500 milliliters of water and then weigh myself, I will weigh 500 grams more because I've put 500 grams of something in my body. That's not fat, it's water. And the big thing about water, for example, is that it doesn't have calories, so it can come and go just like that. Whereas fat is different. You have to burn the energy off to get rid of it. And daily, you are unlikely to see fat changes on the scale because they are so small. If, for example, you are losing a pound per week, that's 0.14 pounds per day. If you're losing 2 pounds per week, that's 0.28 pounds per day. 0.28. So you're unlikely to see that on the scale, especially if other things are masking that loss. So if you have some water retention and you may have lost some fat, that fat loss may be masked by that. It may show higher than the actual number you'd expect to see. So the point here, the really big point, is that the daily number on the scale means nothing because you can't get any reliable data from it. You just don't know what the number is saying. You just don't know what it's measuring. So why do it? The big reason is that a lot of people are not using the scale for feedback, especially in daily weighers. They're not using the scale for feedback. They're using it for validation of their self-worth. They don't want to feel like a failure. So the scale, the number, rather than the data, it's more a question of, am I getting results? Is this working? Am I enough? Am I achieving something? They have low self-worth and they need that number to show what they want, to give themselves that validation of, I am enough, I can do it, I am achieving something. So rather than being logical and recording the numbers for data, so you can tweak things, it becomes emotional. So when you step on the scale and it shows what you want, you are happy. When you step on the scale and it doesn't show what you want, you're upset. And just as a side note, remember what we said about daily weighing. It means nothing. The numbers mean nothing. So when you step on the scale and it doesn't show what you want it to show, what happens? You feel down, you feel negative, and what does that do to your behaviors? And what does that do to your subsequent actions around your diet and exercise, right? And this feeling negative, caused by not seeing what you wanted to see, then how does that play out? How do you deal with negative feelings? Quite often, it links back to food, right? So because you are feeling down and you use food to solve your emotional problems, you then eat more to feel better, and it has negative consequences. And it's usually this process that derails you rather than your diet not working, because you emotionally react to that number and end up eating to change the way you feel, to feel better. And this is a bit crazy because it makes the whole situation a lot worse, because you feel guilty for overeating, you restrict more to try and get better results, you're then hungrier, so then you eat more, and you start making these poor choices which lead you down this slippery slope that you can't get out of. And so you've made the whole situation a lot worse just by stepping on the scale when it doesn't mean anything and it's made you feel bad. The problem is that you've attached your motivation to everything always going perfect. And life just isn't like that. You're not always going to see the number you want to see, and you're not always going to make progress week to week. And if your motivation is attached to that need to see the right number on the scale, then your motivation is going to be up and down every time you weigh yourself. And so too are your behaviors. So too are your actions around your diet. And this is why you get inconsistent results, because it leads you to being on and off the diet, doing things then not doing things, because your motivation is totally attached to that number and how you feel because of it. Life throws obstacles and setbacks. Not everything always goes to plan. You cannot attach your motivation to everything always going as you want it to be. And I've talked about motivations in other videos, so I'll post one up there somewhere. But it's so important not to attach your motivation to the results, because that just doesn't work. Like I said, if your motivation is attached to that number and it's not what you want to see, then you're totally not motivated that day, which is really bad for consistency, really bad for getting results. So that is the huge reason why you tend to fail. So how should you use the scale to measure your fat loss progress? So you can weigh yourself every week, but use it as data. Do not act emotionally on it. It's just there. And then you can combine it with other measurements as well. So tape measurements, progress photos, feeling how your clothes fit on your body. And then after a few weeks, if you do not see any changes in the scale, but also the other measurements too, you can act and change one thing. If we change too many things, we don't know what it was that was the problem. A lot of people will say, oh, this is not working, I'm going to do something else instead, and just diet hop, which again leads to inconsistency because they don't get any feedback of what was going wrong. So you change one thing, and then you go back to the beginning, step one of weighing yourself every week, not putting anything on the data, it's just there, not acting emotionally, and see if it changes after a few weeks, and the other measurements as well. If it does, great, continue what you're doing. If it doesn't, change one other thing. Very, very simple. So this one thing is up to you, but it's based on what you are recording. So it might be, are your portion sizes too big? Are you including enough protein in your meals? Are you drinking enough water? Are you doing enough steps? Are you going overboard on your treats? And so just changing one of these things and being consistent with it, and then checking your results again after a few weeks. And that is what brings you success, by reacting logically with the feedback rather than acting emotionally and having that reaction, which you then end up sabotaging your results by eating to change the way you feel. So I guarantee that you'll get better results with this approach. And please, please resist from weighing yourself every day, because it doesn't do anything. The data is useless. All it does is put you in a poor emotional state if the number is not what you want to see. So just don't do it. Restrain from doing that. And this is an example of weekly weight from a recent client. And you can see that each week the weight is up and down, but that doesn't represent the fat loss. The fat loss from measurements went down each week. However, water retention and other things changes what the weight looks like. And it might be just the luck of she weighed herself on a certain day when it was slightly higher due to higher water retention. But then if we average that out over the month, then we see a lot straighter graph, and it looks a lot like you'd expect, because averaging something out takes out the anomalies. So we see something that looks a lot prettier. And in the moment, when you weigh yourself and you see that spike, it's very easy to act emotionally. And speaking to this client, she did think, oh, is it not working? What's going on? But having that reassurance to know that it is so important. And that's what got her the results, because she continued with what she was doing without reacting emotionally to what she saw. So that is it, guys. I'd like to know as well, let me know in the comments, how often do you weigh yourself? Is it daily, once a week, once a month? Is it never? Really interested to know. And I mentioned at the beginning of the video, my free Facebook group for women. So this is a free Facebook group where I teach you about how to solve your emotional eating and get successful weight loss for the long term. So if you would like to join that, the link is down there in the description below. And like if you haven't done already, subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll see you in the next video.